is spending the next 8 weeks in jail because the same district attorneys after Trump fired him for paperwork and things like that. They spent thousands of dollars, hundreds of man hours giving them all this piece file. Finally, for him to just say, I'll just plead guilty to filing the wrong paper for $1,000 and something. So she, yeah, 8 weekends in jail.
Somebody's running this building.
No problem.
How's it going?
8 weekends.
Happy Monday. No, you came from there. I came from a Cherokee County. It was a high. The other side. How are you? That's a deal. I'm good on 15 minutes. I would rather have. That is tomorrow, but marijuana. That'll be an interesting one. I don't know, Max, gonna take that water. It's fantastic, so I got the game. Oh, I'm already down. Yeah. Very good people. Sharing the news. So, medical marijuana stuff, are they still doing? This was gonna be, this was primary, tomorrow, everything. Well, that's the south. Hold on. Okay. They would have got well, how do you he just said, really? Better like buying a coffee. It's not, but I mean, I think they already do have some range. Strictly at age, it's just not very. Then also, the marijuana derivative test, stuff I want to tell you. What he did. You gotta say, I want you to get outside the state. Most of my stuff, it was, they want just like, just prepare us. Strategy. There was usually big ass like legs. So much better.
And the more we can get them fight. I just, you ever watch that movie? Out of the fantasy now. Some of All Fears. I just happened to watch it again the other day. And the whole thing was to get Russia, the USA to fight each other. The whole part of the plan. That's what we have to do. Is get the big boys fighting each other.
That's the goal. And I mean, truthfully, my primary focus is actually campaigns and elections still. And
so we don't do anything hard.
it like,
We don't have doors, we don't have money to campaign.
we don't do primaries at all, but we do general. We do it.
I'm glad you do.
We do it from like a nonpartisan perspective where we give like educational material.
No, I've given out.
And, but like, it's very clear who we. If you look at like what the literature's saying.
No, in fact, I gave a. One of these older guys. Well, that's, and I said, "Man, what's that? Well, we haven't moved the voter guy." He's a voter guy, and of course, the one thing about that voter. Where I voted for the state. Like they're off the peg. So when you look and say, oh my.
Guys, no, this mic is on. It's,
Not picking me up.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. You've got a committee member or two still en route, but we're gonna kick it off on order the House Study Committee on Gaming. I am Representative Marcus Wiedauer. Welcome to my district. I think those of you that spend a lot of time in Atlanta and want to come see us in our hometowns, a lot of people think that I want to see you in Athens. I love Athens. Went to school there, go Dogs. But I like it a lot better when you come to my hometown. So I appreciate you obliging me. And with that, real quick, because I know he needs to get to another meeting, I want to call up the chairman of our board of commissioners, John Daniel, to give us a little welcome. John, appreciate you having us here and being so welcoming.
Great. It's an honor to have everybody here. Just want to welcome you to the administrative building. We're starting our third year here in this building. So we're very proud of it. If you want to tour toward the end of the meeting, just give us a holler and we'll walk you through and let you see everything. But on behalf of the Oconee County Board of Commissioners and the citizens of Oconee County, welcome.
Appreciate it, John. Appreciate the hospitality. Holly in the back, appreciate you setting this up. I know it was a little short notice. But as the members of the committee know, obviously, gaming of various types has been of topic of late and for quite some time. Some people up here, maybe a little more age than me, have looked into this for quite some years. Of late, I've picked up my opinion of online sports betting, which we'll get into throughout this committee as well. But really, this committee is put together just to kind of look at all of it, the impacts the pros and cons, the impacts it may have for the state of Georgia. We've got good friends on both sides of that, and look forward to hearing from each and every one of them. With that, I'm going to start, if I may, let's actually just go through and introduce everybody, starting down there in the end, and tell everybody where you're from or whatever you'd like to say. I don't pretend to tell Alan Powell what to say. So anyway, Chairman Powell, if you don't mind leading us off, just introduce yourself and we'll go down the road.
Name's Alan Powell. I live on Lake Hartwell, and this might be the first time I put on a pair of long pants in about 3 months. I want to thank the chairman of this committee. We had a similar committee a few years back under late Speaker Ralston. I chair regulated industries, where a lot of this stuff is fallen into over the years, and look forward to hearing this robust debate.
I'm Ron Stevens. I represent Savannah and Bryan County. Bryan County, the fastest growing county in the state. And we've been talking about this issue now since my hair was black, and see where it goes from here. Thank you for inviting.
There he goes. Chairman Stevens has to bring up hair, and I say we've been talking about it since I had some. My name is Chuck Martin. I represent the 49th. I represent the 49th district, Alfredo, Roswell, and Milton over in North Fulton County. Chair the Higher Education Committee, where some of this legislation has landed in the last couple of years.
I'm Brian Hines. I'm an attorney with the House Budget and Research Office, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say today. Thank you.
We're gonna save Stacy for last. We got something special for her. Go ahead.
I'm Matt Hatchett, represent District 155, which is all of Lawrence County and Johnson County, and chair of the Appropriations Committee.
I'm Al Williams. I represent District 168, which is Liberty County, Georgia, and I'm president-elect of the National Council of Legislators from Gaming States. That's 24 states.
Holt Persinger, District 119, which is right down the road, Barrow County and a little bit of Jackson County.
No, don't tell that.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Stacey Evans. I represent House District 57, which is all city of Atlanta. It's got a bunch of Northeast Atlanta neighborhoods. I'm one of the few retreads at the Capitol. I served for 7 years, left for a little bit and came back. We were talking about this when I left. We were talking about it when I came back, and we're still talking about it. And hopefully we'll get some resolution out of this. Glad to be part of the conversation.
So with that, I will say, in a world that bipartisan politics doesn't seem to play a role in a lot of things, she's been a great partner with me over the years. And with that, I'm gonna have a little fun with her this morning because she texted me a little while ago, say she was gonna be running a little bit late because she had run out of gas. And you think as grown adults that doesn't happen anymore. But I can tell you, it reminded me immediately, my first year at the legislature, we all got real jobs outside of this stuff. And I was a home builder, and I'm literally trying to close on a house that day. And I remember, John Haddon, a good member of this community, my electrician, showed up to that house about 7 a.m. and I'm running a skill saw trying to get some punch out done. And he literally steps over top of me. He's like, well, I can tell you one thing. I bet you're the only one taking a vote today running a skill saw right now. And he was probably right. I don't know that to be right, but he was probably right. And so needless to say, I got my things done. I ran to the house, quick, Superman quick change, jumped in old red. I had a 2004 Chevy Silverado that just sucked gas. Love that truck. Still wish I had it, actually. And I'm hauling tail down I-20, trying to get there before 10 o'clock, best I could. Never looked at the fuel gauge. I'm wide open. And I'm in the left lane, clunk, 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 clunk. Somehow or another, by the grace of God, I got over the shoulder, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I have no idea what to do. I was not as quick-witted as she was this morning. She just called an Uber and took her to a gas station, got a gas can, and came back, fixed her own problems. I was freaking out. So what did I do? I texted. The only person that came to my mind that far was Chris Stallings, who was Governor Kemp's body guy at the time, GSP. And I was like, Chris, just give me my options. What are my best options right now? And he goes, just give me a minute. Less than 15 seconds later, I got a text from the governor. It said, need gas? So anyway, there was a lot of humility in that for me. So I take a little fun this morning to thank Stacy for getting here safely.
Well, and in my defense, the gas gauge said 20 miles left, but now I know that 20 means 0. So now at 50, you'll see me exiting left. But yeah, thanks to quick Ubers and kind people showing me how to work the gas can, it all worked out. So glad to be here.
Well, with that, we've talked about some efforts over the years. And if I may, I'm going to call on Chairman Powell to give us maybe some historical information on efforts that have made over his tenure. And so we can get started beyond that.
Thank you so much. I was asked to give a perspective of this, and I want to go back to 2019. The late Speaker Ralston at that time had the wisdom that he appointed a blue ribbon committee of the House. Strange enough, with his wisdom, there were 3 co-chairmen of that committee. It was myself chairing Reg Industries. It was Chairman Stevens representing economic development. And it was Chairman Brett Harrell at that time for Ways and Means. Because when you get into this issue, we're not just looking at the emotions of putting it on the ballot, but we're looking at the entire picture, which is what we did. We weren't restricted to a number of days. That time we went all over this state. We held public hearings. We dug deep into this whole issue. Now, that being said, I want to start out by telling you that the emotions of this, and we have another body that has finally, I think it took a number of years, that they finally came to the conclusion that the legislature can't legalize sports betting or anything else. It takes a constitutional amendment to do that. Not unlike the lottery that 36 years ago we passed a lottery and it carved out the lottery in the state constitution. The state constitution does not allow for gambling unless specifically authorized. So once that was determined, we went forward with that. We looked at all the avenues. We looked at casino gambling. We looked at sports betting. We looked at horse racing. We looked at the whole gamut. I'll start with the easiest one. You can have horse tracks right now in the state of Georgia, but nobody's going to build one if you don't have pari-mutuel. It's just quite simply the way it is. Sports betting, one of the things that we looked at, and we had a lot of testimony, and our conclusion to that was it's the lesser amount of money. Several problems that we saw existed with that was that most of the electronic sports betting is out of state. A lot of it is out of the country, and it would be hard to audit or anything else with that, including the amount of the lesser the money. Destination resorts. We went to a great amount of effort at that time to define casinos. One of the things that was a difficulty, we had a lot of people that have this connotation in their mind about Las Vegas. Well, I can assure you there'll never be another Las Vegas. That's a unique situation in its own right. If you look at the other states around the country, wherever they have casinos, they're freestanding. They're not basically put into a cluster with each other. But we had made a decision as a committee at that time that Georgia did not want to get into the casino business if that was the will of the public, and have what we call gambling box for these small side of the road corner type operations. And that was where we came up with the definition destination resorts. Quite frankly, the destination resorts was we put an agenda of a number of items out there, whether it be convention centers, restaurants, hotels, yacht clubs, golf courses, all of those things that you would associate to a resort. And if they did that, then they would qualify based on whatever the number of those criteria would be. Gaming commission, basically we had looked at the gaming commission, the structure of that. We even had enabling legislation for all of that. And then last but not least, the most important part of this is where would the money be spent? You know, we have a situation in Georgia that we have the lottery. The lottery that was formed by or championed by late Governor Miller. You know, that was like the second coming of Jesus to get things to be passed. That a lot of people have forgotten that the Georgia lottery only passed the legislature by a couple of votes because it takes 2/3 of the votes. One of the things that we were very specific in Governor Miller was that the lottery would be above reproach. Monies that would come in. Been a very highly successful program in the state of Georgia. As I like to tell folks, it's probably been the salvation to the university system in Georgia, because they basically set tuition based on how much money they can gouge out of the lottery every year. So it's been a great program. I think it's gone a little bit in a different direction than what the original intent was. But I will tell you that they are still doing quite well. There's several secondary accounts that have shortfall monies in the lottery account. As the lottery president likes to say, they still do 25% net. Well, that's somewhat truthful, but somewhat not truthful. Ticket sales are down with the lottery, as I understand. They're down to about 21.5%. But what's making up the difference is a few years ago, we put the COAM under that lottery. And the COAM is bringing in the difference to keep it bumped up to 25% at this date. And it's kind of disingenuous. We said it then, we said it then, and I continue to say it. No matter what or who wants to say whatever about the evils of gambling, there's a lot of evils in this world. But people do apparently like to gamble, as is proved by the Georgia lottery. Anybody that would pay $2 for a ticket, it used to be $1, now they pay $2 for a ticket. And it brings in a tremendous amount of money, that and the COAM division. So I will say, start back where I started at. Legislators don't legalize gambling. The people of Georgia legalize gambling. It's only up to the legislature, if it's their desire, to put it on the ballot. People of Georgia to make that decision, and that's to put the criteria of what they're going to do. And that's the nutshell version of what we did.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for folks in the audience that may not know, obviously, I think everybody up here knows, if you want to expand on COAM for a second, what COAM is for people. We know what that term means, but not everybody does.
COAM is these amusement games that started out once upon a time as amusement games. These are the games you see at locations. People put the money in and they win prizes, and the prizes are gift certificates. Nowhere in the state of Georgia has the payout of cash ever been legal out of these machines. Back 25 or so years, 25, 30 years ago, it had reached a fever pitch that it had gotten out of hand. It was reined in at that time. And basically what has happened, and of course, as I'd said, it was put under the Lottery Commission for scrutiny and control and regulation. We still have a few places that are not doing it the right way. Some of them may be paying that cash, but I can tell you that those are absolutely illegal operations that do that. The reason I say that was a few years ago, for the sake of being able to control and to see what the COAM, these coin-operated amusement machines, are doing, they were tethered electronically. Each machine is tethered back to the Lottery Commission, so they can see exactly what's going on with those machines and the cash payout involved. And they should have the opportunity to see what's going on. So gift certificates are what's being paid out to that and be used to purchase goods and services.
Thank you, Chairman. We have had one member join us. Ms. Neal, if you don't mind introducing yourself to these fine folks.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Yasmin Neal, District 79, Clayton County.
So much. We'll get into some of the known people, but I will note there is a sign-up sheet. Anyone here is obviously welcome to speak, and we'll try to roll through that as we can. At this time, want to give some time to Mr. Griffin, if you'd like to come forward at all, or I have you on the list as maybe wanting to talk, but don't mean to put you on the spot if you're not interested. But I feel like you like to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. You know, I've been doing this a while. My 18th year down at the Capitol and 12 representing Georgia Baptist, dealing with all these types of issues that we have down there. And but I do appreciate your committee and the opportunity to come and be able to share very briefly with you just a few things. I've given you some handout sheets, and if there's some extras that came in, you need some more, I've got them here as well. Need to do that. A number of years ago, we were having a press conference at the Capitol and opposing the expansion of gambling in the state of Georgia. And one of our speakers was Representative Todd Jones, and all of you know Todd very well, great guy. And he co-authored the mental health legislation, revision and things that were done in 22, 23, I believe it was. And in it, he made this statement, and it's a very objective statement as far as I'm concerned. He says that it's intellectually, basically, I mean, I literally watched some of his video yesterday, but the summary of what he said was that it was intellectually dishonest to talk about the benefits of gambling without talking about the detriments. And one of the things that we've tried to do is just give you data and information. You may not ride a high moral horse on whether you think it's right or wrong, but what about the data? What does it have related to economics? What about crime? What about addiction rates? Those types of things. And so, you know, that's been the thing we've been trying to encourage you on. So you look at the data and you see the information. I've given you a couple of handouts. One of those comes from Skip Armstead. He's with Stop Predatory Gambling. And then I've also given you a handout from Professor John Kent, who's with the University of Illinois. He's now retired. Actually, I think he taught some at the University of Georgia, so go Dogs. And I've given you some data there from him as well. And where that data came from on that one sheet of paper that is called the ABCs of Gambling is in 2021 in November, we did a gambling symposium at the downtown Hilton there in Atlanta. And we invited representatives and public to come. We had a number of, there were some House members that were there. And when Professor Kent finished his presentation on the data regarding the impact of gambling on our society, one of the House members stood up and said, I just want you to know, I'm against gambling, but my people want it. And I need that information to share with my people so they can know. And they said, can you put it on a one sheet of paper? And can you take all this national data and put it into a Georgia framework? And so that's what I've given you there in his ABCs, and it has the information. In 2021, he and a number of his associates wrote an Illinois law review on gambling. And I've got that information. A lot of that comes from that data. So you'll see that there. Just very, very briefly, we talk about the economic side. He talks about the fact that it's going to cost jobs. You'll see that on the sheet there. Gambling expansion will decrease spending on necessities. And again, I've been dealing with this for about 12 years down at the Capitol. And typically where gambling increases, crime goes up, bankruptcies go up, addiction goes up. And we talk about dealing with casinos, sex trafficking has a tendency to go up in that area. And then jobs go down, savings go down, and spending on necessities goes down as well. And you see that data that's there. It also mentions that if you take the national data and put it down to a Georgia situation, you would have anywhere from 17 to 33 new addicted gamblers potentially. And you look at the expense that it's going to cost. You'll see some stuff there from Skip regarding net versus gross income that comes into the state regarding it. Now, hey, there's going to be a ton of money going to come in if you legalize more gambling. Definitely will do that. But he and Professor Earl Grennels, that's Professor Kent, testified under oath before Congress 2 or 3 times, and they never were opposed by gambling proponents, that for every dollar a state brings in from tax revenue, it costs them anywhere from $3 to $5 in exponential expenses, either to the Department of Community Health, or whether it's got to do with individual taxpayers or the government in general. In other words, the money comes in, but it ends up costing more on the other side. One of my areas that I deal with at Georgia Baptist Mission Board is child sex abuse prevention. And one of the things we focus on is being victim-centric. And I've often said the best way to be victim-centric is not to have a victim. In other words, do what you can to keep it from happening. And so that's one of the things I'm concerned about, any more gambling expansion and what it can cost. And of course, you see the information there when you talk about crime, the increased rates is going to be related to that, child abuse, spousal abuse, those types of things, increases divorce rates. The American Psychiatric Association on Diagnostic Statistics Manual on mental disorders classifies gambling addiction under the same area as heroin, opioids, alcohol, and cocaine. Increases can go anywhere from up to 110% if we expand more gambling in our state. And it's already been shown, and there are different pieces of data. Here's my notebook with all this stuff I've flyered. I've got so much data in here that I've looked at through the years that up to a third of those addicted gamblers could attempt a suicide. And I do have the data here from suicide rates at where they are now in the state of Georgia regarding those types of things. I want to close with this. I didn't hand this out to you, but I've got it here. I've got a commentary, because literally this was asked of Paul Smith about 4 years ago in the Senate hearing. What does the Bible say about gambling? I've never had a question like that before, but this just came out. It's called 10 Biblical Reasons Why You Shouldn't Gamble, basically. And the Baptist Press just put this out nationally 2 days ago. And I just want to read one point, if I can. Can I do that? I'm a preacher. I can preach a long time here.
I'll cut you off.
Thank you, Chairman. Anyway, number 9, it says gambling when legalized violates the principle of government ministry by permitting laws that encourage its citizens to participate in the gambling industry. If you go to the scripture and you look in Romans 13:4, it says, he is a minister of God to thee for good. Talking about government. This is what God's view of government is. To be a minister of God to thee for good. For if thou doest that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth the sword. He doesn't bear the sword, not in vain. For he is a minister of God, a revenger, execute wrath upon those that do evil. So the point is simply this: government sanctioned gambling, on the other hand, encourages that which is evil and perverts the purpose for which God intended government. This is precisely what predatory gambling is. It is state-sponsored gambling that is based on the pretext that we're allowing something evil, but it's being sanctified because it's supposedly being done for good, raising tax revenue to help the children, those types of things. And I know that none of you would be for legalizing fentanyl if you thought it would help education. I know you wouldn't be for legalizing prostitution, I don't think. Although there are a lot of things going on wrong, and we don't want to let the end justify the means. Just because we're going to get revenue doesn't mean it's that it's going to be actually help generally our society. So I do not believe that God, I do not believe God will hold us as citizens guiltless if we allow more of this to happen again in the state of Georgia. So I'm concerned about that. You've got that information there, and I'm willing to answer any questions. I'll be here for you today. And I appreciate all of you so much. Chairman, you know I like you. You're a good guy. And you and I have spent time, we've talked together, and I have friends, Steve and I, we go back. Hey, Alan, we go way back. I'm his #1 constituent, okay? We ran for the same office one time in 2006, but I really appreciate all of y'all and the opportunity. Al, man, we've all worked together and friends, and we just want to look at the information, and then you make what you feel is the best decision for the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Any member of the committee have any questions for Mr. Griffin? Mr. Griffin, I'll take this opportunity, as this is going to seem a little off topic for a second, but since we have a microphone, and a lot of this gets into, you brought up mental health several times in there. Something that we've tackled as a as a body under the leadership of David Ralston head on. We know how much that is. I would love to see your passion in other avenues, not just in gambling, because I think that social media and several other things that are greatly affecting our societal fabric, as you speak to gambling being, would love to see some of that passion in some of these other categories, and you're supporting those as well.
Right. You'll see that tomorrow in marijuana and hemp. I'll be at the hearing tomorrow in Atlanta. But yeah, there are a number.
Maybe outside of substances. How about
Yeah,
that?
a number of issues that we deal with. And I really thank all of you and those of you that were able to vote in favor of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. As they said on Mayberry, that's like the gold truck going through Mayberry. That was big. And we can't thank our governor enough for what he has done, especially a couple of those issues with the heartbeat law and RFRA were two of the big things that he promised a group of us in 2018 before he was governor, and he couldn't have done it without your help.
Well, I will reiterate my desire for there to be other things that you
We will.
champion for.
And I'm
Got a
open
comment?
for your suggestions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment, and I know it's starting to happen more and more, but alcoholism is, a big issue in America, and especially in Georgia as well. But we have alcohol stores at the edge of every corner, especially in some of the lower income neighborhoods that don't need them. Gluttony, but we have, restaurants and the sugar rush and all of the worst sugar vices you could think of are littering our corners. Sex trafficking, we're known for that here in Georgia, but we are also known for our strip clubs. Video games are, making it where children are becoming more violent, but they, have record sales every year. So I just want to be careful when it comes to selectively choosing what we apply the Bible to, and how we choose to interpret the Bible and what we want to demonize, just because one person's vice is different from another.
Sure. And I believe in a biblical worldview. And if you go to the book of Genesis, you can probably look at least 10 major academic, social subjects that are already addressed in the book of Genesis, just as a biblical worldview perspective. And, you know, I believe in liberty and I believe in freedom, people making their choices to do the right things. But also then government does have that responsibility to try to regulate things and outlaw things, but also to help the people to do the best that they can. We live in a sin-sick, lost world, so till Jesus comes, we're going to constantly have a lot of problems, but we just keep looking to the Lord for his help and guidance and all of that. Do the right thing.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. You gave us a number of statements, very generalized, not really directed necessarily to sports betting or any particular kind of gambling. So I was wondering if you would be willing to provide the sources that you were reading from today so
I
that we
did.
could check.
You have it.
Is it
ABC,
this?
Gambling.
This?
Yes. Well, no, there's another one. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
right. And a good bit of that, I'm understanding, came out of the Illinois Law Review here as well. And there have been also reviews from Georgia State University and others that have given just pure data information on the various issues from economic to crime, addiction, those types of things. Just so you have the information, just so you can look at it and see. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
All right, with the last name Wiedauer, I'm pretty sensitive to how things get pronounced, so I apologize. Is Miss Terry in the audience? Sassaville. All right. Next person I have here is Eric Norton, who I went to college with a John Nordine spelled the same way, and I think they have a personal rift over how to say the last name. But if you don't mind introducing yourself and
Sure. My name is Eric Norton. I'm the CEO of RFI Gaming. Appreciate you having me here and providing me with an opportunity to speak. RFI is a gaming equipment manufacturer. We're headquartered in Sewanee technically, but we're closer to Johns Creek than we are to Sewanee. But I just wanted to talk about, you know, in the state of Georgia, if there is gaming expansion, that casino resort casinos can provide a lot of economic opportunity outside of, you know, just the direct, you know, tax benefits. There's, you know, construction of the casinos, there's jobs to run the casinos. And there's also companies like mine that build the equipment, whether it's the machine itself or the displays and all the other entertainment that goes along with it. But wanted you to know that what we do is regulated across multiple jurisdictions. We're licensed in over 24 tribes across multiple states in Texas, Oklahoma, Washington State, Wisconsin. And what we provide is a source of entertainment for, you know, our largest industry is Native Indian casinos in Oklahoma and Texas, Washington State. And the benefits that we provide to the tribes is tremendous. Without the casinos, they wouldn't really have an economic future. But if we're to look at, you know, casino gaming versus sports betting, or really there's a lot going on nationally with regards to online sweepstakes and also online sporting event contracts that are really outside the purview of gaming, but because they're a futures contract, they're regulated by the CTFC. But I believe that in Georgia, if we were to provide casinos, there would be much more benefit to the state versus, you know, online gaming or sports betting itself. You know, sports betting, the profits are really go to Vegas-based companies or other corporations that aren't housed here and don't provide jobs here. So just wanted to provide some insight as to the other knock-on effects. I know you've talked about this for a while, whether it's but there are other benefits.
Feel like the ship just landed outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Strange. But just wanted to provide that opportunity to talk about, what we do and the benefits to the state that would be provided. Also wanted to talk about GLI certification. Every single one of our games has to go through certification in New Jersey. So what that means is how the game plays, how the math is calculated, how the actual payouts are generated, and how the game plays has to go through hundreds of hours of testing to make sure that it's a fair game, that everybody that's playing is has an equal shot at winning a prize or not. Within the industry, we also provide resources to help players that become addicted or that get into other mental health problems. So there is a lot there that we all need to think about in terms of if we were to expand gaming in Georgia. I think there's a lot of other benefits that can be provided within the state other than just that immediate tax revenue. Casinos will provide a lot of jobs, and I think it'll also be a benefit to all the towns where the casinos are built. I've been involved in this industry for almost 20 years. Started off in 08 with Cadillac Jack, and now run my own company in the industry. So be very happy to answer any questions about really the economic structure of how the dollar gets split from taxes to the actual operator to the manufacturer like myself that provides games across the country. So.
Can you just confirm your name again?
Eric Norden.
The last name?
Nordin.
I'd like to stay in contact after this.
Sure.
Any other members of the committee have any questions?
Okay.
Oh, easy today. Next I have on my list is actually, I know you signed up twice, but I already had you on here, Mr. Ed Clark.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Ed Clark. I'm the president of how I've introduced myself the many years we've been dealing with this, Atlanta Motor Speedway. Today I'll tell you Atlanta Motor Speedway is now Echo Park Speedway. We completed a naming rights agreement about a month ago. And after about 15,000 man hours and 6 weeks, we converted the speedway over, changed all our colors, redid all the signage, did everything, and now we are Echo Park Speedway. We're a part of Speedway Motorsports, and just a quick plug before we get into the subject. Representative Hatchett and I were talking about this a minute ago. I invite you all to tune in Saturday night. We've taken our track in Bristol Motor Speedway and created a Major League Baseball field in the infield. And this Saturday night, we'll host the largest crowd to ever see a Major League Baseball game when the Atlanta Braves play the Cincinnati Reds. And that's just an indication that we're willing to step out there and do some unusual things. We've had a highly attended, the largest college football game ever attended there, now baseball. So tune in Saturday night and go Braves. Just a quick overview on the Speedway to show you where our interest level comes from with this project we're talking about. The Speedway opened in 1960. basically the home of 2 NASCAR events a year. And since that time, the Speedway has evolved. Our company purchased the track in 1990, and we have completely rebuilt and enlarged the facility without a single dollar of government assistance. We've done it all on our dollar. Today, 65 years later, we've evolved into not a speedway, but a major event and entertainment center. We have over 400 events a year, which translates into over 1,000 day uses a day. Now, when you do your math, I'm sure you say, well, how is that? We have almost 900 acres there. So on a given weekend, we may hold 3 different events at different locations within the facility. Mostly known, largely known internationally and nationally, as well as the home of 2 NASCAR races. And with all the events, we create an economic impact that is very significant for the state of Georgia, bringing people in from all over the world. Several years ago, we redesigned our track and have created one of the most competitive and most entertaining speedways. Our attendance has blossomed since that time. So that was a major commitment from our company looking to the future of Atlanta Motor Speedway. The next step we're looking at that brings back to our subject is to broaden our business footprint, partner with an experienced operating company, and create a fully integrated, high-end, quality resort with a hotel, casino, convention space, dining facilities from high-end to casual, retail, entertainment, and amusement activities. And I gave you a handout with some renderings just so you can see the quality and scope of what we have in mind. So why are we a good location? Number one, we're internationally known. People come here from all over the world. We attract over 1 million visitors a year to the events and activities we have. 29 miles from downtown, 20 miles from Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. We've got the Atlanta Speedway Airport next door. Much of the infrastructure needed is in place already. 8.5 million people within 100 miles. We've got a huge base of business with these events we already have. And most of all, we've got the overwhelming support of the local business, political, and civilian community. So how would a facility such as this benefit Georgia? Well, there are no new secrets, no new information on this. New business means new jobs. We estimate that the construction will be up to 3,000 jobs, and once up and operating, 2,500 to 3,000 full-time and part-time operational jobs that are good paying jobs. Why is that important? Representative Powell mentioned the hearing that we had at the Speedway a number of years ago. I think we were all overwhelmed. And Alan, I think you were, or Ron, you were on the committee too, right? We were all overwhelmed at the number of local citizens who came forward and said, we want this, we want the jobs. 70% of Henry County's people drive out of the county every day to work. They're on I-75, they're in traffic, they get home late, they miss activities with their families. And this is an opportunity for them to work close to home, make a comparable salary. Also, the enhancements it brings to the community, in our area, dining, retail, entertainment, all those things would be welcome additions that people are excited about. And it would really become the engine that makes Atlanta Motor Speedway, Echo Park Speedway, a 12-month-a-year facility. We have great events. We have great activity now. We feel like having this resort would bring additional national and local events to the facility, and would make us relevant year-round, 52 weeks a year. So moving away from the Speedway itself, let's talk about the potential economic impact. And Mike, I know you debate this a bit, and I respect Mike and his views, and hopefully he does ours as well. The potential economic impact to the state, if we had 6 facilities, would be somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple $1 billion a year. Significant job creation, revenues that the state could use for whatever use. We won't always have this huge slush fund we have now. Thank goodness we're in a state. My daughter lives in California. Thank goodness we're in Georgia and not dealing with what they deal with there. And we have the revenues we have. But we would also capture revenues the state is currently losing. Each month, 65,000 people approximately in this state go out of state to resort facilities that offer casino gambling. That revenue, a great deal of it would stay here. I have a good friend who beats me up every time he sees me. When are you going to get this done? I'm getting old. I don't want to travel to Mississippi. Maryland, in 2023, 6 facilities there in a state with a smaller population than what we have, $848 million back to the state. It would also enhance, not only create business for Atlanta Motor Speedway, Echo Park Speedway, but also local vendors. Many local vendors would be used and would benefit in the growth in their businesses, as well as support services for this facility. And lastly, it would bring additional first-class high-end resorts to the state. We have quite a few good ones. We can certainly use more. One thing that's come out overwhelmingly is the citizens of Georgia want the opportunity to weigh in on this. I'm constantly asked, what's taking so long on this subject? The lottery's already here. They don't understand the big concern, the big holdup. This lottery has done an outstanding job helping well over 4 million people attend college and pre-K in the state, and many more to come. But this also, not only in addition to bringing the jobs, it's an opportunity to bring regulation. It's an opportunity to get our arms around gaming in the state, and it creates revenue to help these people who do have a gaming problem. Now, on the 24 Republican primary, there was a ballot question. Every district of the state of Georgia voted heavily in favor of wanting the citizens to be allowed by the state legislature to make this decision. And we've got the numbers. We'd be happy to share them with you, but depending on the district, between 76% and 86% in favor of being allowed to decide. We're not asking you guys to decide and your fellow legislators. All we're asking is, let's do this constitutional amendment. Let's make it possible for the citizens to go to the polls, and whether for or against, express their opinion and decide on this issue themselves. I will tell you, I remember a conversation in a Senate hearing. One longtime senator in the state who said, we need to stop this before it gets to the people because they aren't educated enough and smart enough to make the right decision. I don't think that's correct. I don't think the legislature should be legislating morality to the citizens of Georgia. I think the citizens of Georgia need to decide. That same senator, by the way, when questioned later, admitted that he had used lottery funds through the Hope Scholarship to send his kids to school. So he didn't have a problem with that, but he had a huge problem with adding gaming. So independent polls, and this has been from 2019 to now, including ones by the AJC, WSB, University of Georgia, show that Georgians overwhelmingly support gaming by 60+% versus about 30% on average in opposition. In a public opinion poll by Public Opinion Strategies in 2022, it showed the support was bipartisan. across all social and economic levels, universal across all regions of the state. That poll showed 66% favor, 30% opposed, 4% undecided, and 84% of those that weighed in favored giving citizens the right to make the decision. 87% favored local referendums once that's done, so each local area can decide, do we want this in our area or not? Don't know of a fair way to do it. So we've talked about this for a number of years. I would say in the kindest way I can, I don't think the actions of the members of the legislature have reflected the will of the constituents that voted and put them in office. And I would encourage not only you all, but your other legislators as well. Don't just listen to the people in your small group. Don't just listen to the people you go to church with. Don't just listen to the people who show up at your town halls, but go out, go stop in a convenience store, stop in a grocery, people, ask people how they feel. I think you're going to get a view that is there because poll after poll after poll has shown that's the way the citizens feel. So I encourage you to consider that. Again, you guys don't need to decide. It needs to be up to the will of the people. And we encourage you to consider that as you debate this issue again this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee for Mr. Clark?
Clarification. I'm not sure what context, and I know you mean well with all your words, Mr. Clark. We've had interactions for years, so I'm just make a point of this. Somewhere in there, you I think referred to the money we have left over at the state as the slush fund.
Well,
I'm not taking exception, only to say this, that all that money came from the Georgia voters without regard to your comments on this particular thing. That money is given to us in trust. And I look at my friend that does appropriations down there. And I sit here, I don't look at it like that. I know that's not at your heart what you meant with that either. You just mean we have extra dollars to invest in Georgia. So I just want you to know, and just wanted to make that clear.
Well taken, and a bad choice of words on my part.
And I know your heart, sir, and I know that's the reason I just wanted to clear that up. I didn't.
The point I was getting to is we may not always be in the economic position.
Understood.
And thank goodness we are. And I think that's a blessing for all of us. And I think that is also a reflection of the stewardship of the people. We don't spend money just because we have it.
Yes, sir.
There aren't a
And
lot of
again,
states that do
you don't have, I understand where your heart is from talking to you in the past on that. And I just didn't want those words to sound out here in perpetuity that we.
I'll do my best to never use those two words again.
Yes, sir.
Any other thoughts?
Wait, I'll say this, just one parting thing. How long have you, actually, I'll ask you a question. How long have you been with the Speedway?
I've been with our company since 1981. I started at Atlanta Motor Speedway in 1992. So 33 years.
I'll just say I've had the opportunity to employ quite a few people. I've not met many that share your passion for your employer, and I wish I had a few. So appreciate your dedication to them.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Well, I've been blessed to work in a business that I love with a company who cares about their employees. And I will say this, if Speedway Motorsports is doing something, they're going to do it right. So if we build a facility at the Speedway, it'll be something we'll all be proud of.
Can I follow up on a happier note, Mr. Chairman?
Keep it brief, Chuck.
I just want to, again, go over the thing that you guys are doing. I think it's up at Bristol in Tennessee this week. I just think that's cool. I mean, that goes back to some of the things they do with the hockey things. I think they do it out on Soldier Field and
Right.
play the Winter Classic or whatever. Tell me that date again.
It's this Saturday.
This Saturday.
And it'll be on Fox TV.
I've seen the overview of the baseball layout in the middle of the infield, and it's just a pretty neat thing.
It makes, on the surface, it makes absolutely no sense to spend the time and money to build a baseball field to play one game. But the world of sports is looking at it, talking about it. So I guess from that standpoint, what's the value of that? Plus, we just like to do things to say we could do it. People say that's impossible. You can't do it. We took buildings down. We took the pit wall down. We've done all kind of things just to facilitate this 1 3-hour game. But I'm going to be watching. I hope you all do too. Thanks.
Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Ed. I didn't know Ed before the 2019 committee meetings that we were running. And I found him to be very an unusual citizen lobbyist working for Atlanta Motor Speedway. We had all the lobbyists that came from the casinos and from all the aspects of the gambling and all of that. Most of these were the contract lobbyists, and they all did a good job representing their various casinos and sports betting interests and all that. It was unusual to me at that time, and it still is, that Ed represented a Georgia-based company, a company that had been in this state for years, 1,000+ acres, whatever, down there with Motor Speedway. And their business model was to develop and to expand the Motor Speedway into a theme park that had adult recreation. Georgia-based company, willing to do that. I thought that was interesting. So that being said, whatever foo-fah he may have said that alienated the good chairman over everybody.
I just want to be clear, I wasn't alienated by that. I just wanted to make sure, I knew that's not what the gentleman meant.
Which also opens up something that I did not get into, and that was revenue. You know, we heard Mike speak about revenue, and it's a sin for us to look at ways of raising revenue, especially if it's perceived as a sinning proposition. But it's like the lottery. The lottery came to fruition, and it was about the hope, and it was about scholarships and money that went to education, and it turned into a pretty good thing. If the people of Georgia want a right to vote, and it's part of our obligation is to let them know where this money's going to go. Now, at this time, I pushed the issue a few years ago when we did these hearings in 19, and that was that the money should be specifically spent on a issue that would benefit all Georgians. Now, a lot of people disagreed with me. Some of them wanted to spend half of it on education. Some of them put billions in pockets of the lottery. It's not needed right now, or wasn't then, not now. But one of the things that I pushed at that time was the #1 issue in this state that we don't have the money today. We haven't had it in the past, and we'll never have it in the future. Something that would benefit every Georgian. Healthcare. Healthcare. We've never had enough money, but that's something that it could go towards. To our friends who always talk about we don't have enough Medicaid. Well, that money could be used for Medicaid. It could be used for nursing schools. It could be used for anything healthcare related. Aid to rural hospitals that are in trouble. I wanted to throw that tidbit out there to this committee, because in the deliberation of this committee, you're going to have a chance to start seeing where would this money properly go to benefit all Georgians.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Mr. Paul Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. Members of the committee, I promised that I'd be brief, and I will. It helps that I can just ditto what my friend Mike said in his testimony. But I do want to first thank you all for meeting and considering this very seriously and hearing out both sides of it. Thank you for that. I also want to say that I thanked Senator Summers, the Senate sponsor of the Senate Constitutional Amendment on expanding state-sponsored gambling this year. I thanked him for the wording of his constitutional amendment, because it was clear. It was clear what the people were voting on. And I appreciated that, and I would urge that that mindset continue. Now, citizen impact, we are, sorry. Start again. My name is Paul Smith. That's my mistake. I should have started with that. Paul Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Citizen Impact. We're a faith-based organization, represent churches all across this state of Georgia. I like to begin by saying we are morally opposed to expanding state-sponsored gambling. The pastors I represent are morally opposed to that. I just kind of established that, set that aside. We don't generally focus on that part of it. There's a lot of other data, things that are out there that are not morally based, and Mike has done a good job referencing a lot of that, and I've certainly talked about that in previous testimony. But again, just to reiterate, I was grateful that the CA that was introduced this year, the wording that would be on the ballot was very clear, and that's important that voters know what they're talking about. But I want to quickly add to that. I've heard many times through the testimony at the General Assembly on this, and even today, about the question on the Republican ballot that was overwhelmingly voted in favor of a constitutional amendment on this. I think that ballot question was poorly worded and confused people. And my proof for that is that pastors that are affiliated with our organization, pastors who have been down to the Capitol to lobby against expanding gambling, were calling me saying, how am I supposed to vote on this question? What should I say on this question? It was just, I knew what they wanted to vote on. I knew how they wanted to answer it, but they were confused. Does that mean I put yes? Does that mean I put no? So I think that question was worded poorly enough that the conclusions of that are suspect. The only thing I'll mention is I have several articles here to hand out. I have copies for everyone. I do not have a copy of an article from the Wall Street Journal. It's behind a paywall that concluded that much of the resources allocated by the state to help gambling addicts is woefully inadequate. That's the Wall Street Journal's conclusion. All of these bills tend to have money allocated for help, addiction issues. And the Wall Street Journal's conclusion was that it's insufficient. Now, these articles that I'm going to hand out, one of them is more focused on sports betting, but the purpose in handing that out is to show that it is headlines from major news outlets that are reporting on the conclusions they've come to about gambling now that it's been more widespread and legalized. The data is coming in and other information is coming in. So that handout will show you the headlines of many of the news organizations and what they're writing about it. The other article is from NPR. And so these are major news agencies that are writing about concerns with state-sponsored gambling. So again, I promise to be brief. That's all I'll say. I have this handout. If I can turn that in should be enough copies for everyone.
Representative Evans, you have a question?
I defer, my good friend. Go ahead.
That's quick. I know that you made a reference to the referendum last year that was on the Republican primary. I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. You tell me exactly what it said. It was so confusing.
I can't tell you verbatim, okay, but I can tell you the gist of it. It said, should the people of Georgia vote on whether or not to expand gambling, or should we leave it up to the politicians in Atlanta?
I can read the exact thing.
Can you? Good, because I don't remember exactly.
And that's fine. We may get the exact wording here in a second, but I do think it is a fair point, because you got to believe we all get the question on how I'm supposed to answer a question on the ballot. And I will say there is a process for that when it comes through legislation. The question you're referring to was a party question.
Yeah.
So nobody sitting up here worded that question for anybody. So just, if there's gonna be criticism of that, you can criticize the parties, but that's not gonna be a criticism of the legislature.
And the context was, I thank Chairman Summers for his clearly worded question, because I felt like that question confused a lot of people.
And actually, I leaned over to confer, my understanding, quite frankly, is on some of those questions where it may be written a certain way, lawyers get involved and put things on the ballot, and it could be a question I proposed and I get confused by the time the lawyers
Yeah,
get done with it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, again, I don't think that, as I see one of them hanging his head in the background, so I think that, I think we caution any, too much criticism on how things are drafted in the beginning, because it doesn't always end up how we even intend it.
Well, and as far as the question itself, to put it as, to put to the voters, especially Republican voters, should the politicians in Atlanta decide, they're going to vote no, no matter what you're talking about.
This is the exact question.
Got it?
Would you support a statewide vote to allow gaming in Georgia so the voters can decide the issue instead of the politicians in Atlanta? The only word they left out was the slimy, politicians in Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the implication.
Maybe that might have been clearer.
Yeah.
If they had put that.
And I have no idea who came up with that wording, but I kind of assumed it was a politician in Atlanta who came up with that wording, but I don't know.
That is a party question on a primary ballot.
Okay.
So that's not something that the legislature voted on, and not something that one of us put, Chair Martin.
I just wanted, he pulled up the same thing I had done, and I was gonna read it, not to do this. I will say this, I do know people, and you said get out in the community, when they, I think somebody said earlier, and again, there are gonna be people for this issue and against this issue today and down the road.
Sure.
But I think to purportedly say that 88% of the people voted for this, therefore 88% of people will vote for it, is an absolute misinterpretation of the fact. Because I know people that said they voted to have the vote, but that then will go vote against it.
Sure.
Now, that's not to say that the question was what the question is, but I understand your point there. So being objective and a statistician, I would say that, the percentage of folks on that, that voted yes on that question may not be the same percentage that would ultimately vote for it. I think that was the point the gentleman was trying to make.
No, and I appreciate you acknowledging that the answer to that question is not necessarily reflective of the number of Georgia voters that would support expanding state-sponsored.
I believe that's a fair concern.
And I would add to that, I think that just simply echoes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think some of the people that voted yes on that would vote no against expansion of gaming. But I think that just solidifies the point, though, that the people would like that opportunity, not us. And that's, as far as I'm aware of the list of bills that have been presented of late, every single one of them is a constitutional amendment. So in every one of these discussions, it has been simply let the voters decide. Can we agree on that?
Well, and here's my concern about that. I'm sorry, did I cut someone off?
I guess my question is, can we agree that that is what has been proposed, is letting the voters decide?
I will only add that it's history tells us that those who in the gambling industry will spend quite a lot of money, a substantial amount of money on advertising and other things to convince Georgia voters that it will be good for Georgia, whereas those of us who oppose it have no such resources to present the other side through, just billboards or TV ads, radio ads, those things. I think a substantial amount of money will be spent to persuade voters for one side only.
And your caution is noted.
Okay, thank you.
But with that, can we agree that what has been proposed of late is asking the voters what their opinion is?
We can agree on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was about what I was getting to. I wished that the poor folk in my district, when I first ran, who didn't have any money, hadn't spent $127,000 on my opponent. So, and I won anyhow. The thing is, And that was a party question. So this poor little Democrat from Southeast Georgia would not know the inner workings of the poor Republican Party. But I do know some very poor Republicans that asked me every day after that election, when are we going to vote? Well, it gets to the gist. If we're terrified to think the people don't have enough sense to vote, then I beg to differ that they'll vote. And if they vote it down, which they have the right to, but why are we terrified about how they're going to vote?
Well, again, I think the overwhelming advertising will be to turn out supporters of it, advertising dollars and things, marketing money. Thank you.
The discussion had clarified that the question I had for you was misguided, but to ease your mind, I'll tell you this, and you and I probably disagree on this issue. I probably won't change your mind, you probably won't change mine, but if there's a gripe that you have that I can try to address, I still want to. And so I was concerned, you were concerned about prior gambling initiative language that had been on the ballot. And now I'm glad to know that the complaint is with the Republican Party, not the Georgia General Assembly. But to ease your mind, I thought you were talking about something that you felt that the hope language back in the 90s was missed. So I just wanted to tell you that the last time the Georgia General Assembly put language on the ballot, and I can't help myself, Mr. Chairman, there was a different party letter in charge back then. But that language said whether the Constitution should be amended to allow for a state-operated and regulated lottery with proceeds designated for educational purposes. So I think that was, hopefully we can agree, that was not misleading. And
correct.
And so the last time the Georgia General Assembly's done a question, I think it would probably be to your standards, even if you would vote no.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I mean, if we're being very candid with each other, even using the word gaming versus explicitly saying casinos or sports betting, you know, I'd like to see that. Not that gaming is completely wrong, but for a lot of people, that still might confuse the issue. So, we good? Oh, nope, can't get out of this yet.
You'll get out of the direct question because I was actually gonna pull up, but I will say this. I mean, just like that, look, I don't want to answer 1,000 questions on how am I supposed to answer a question. And I would absolutely encourage, and you know, I've worked with all of you I think very well. I've come to you guys directly even before I introduced the bill.
Yes, you have.
To have a conversation with you. So my door is always open, as is, I would say, everybody on this committee. And certainly, as those things get worded, yeah, I encourage that too. So if I'd love to have your input. Yeah, so just for point of clarification, the resolution that I put forward. Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to authorize sports betting in this state to provide additional funding for pre-kindergarten and Hope scholarships? Is that clear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you for the opportunity to clarify that I was not referring to the Hope or other, you know, your legislation. I was referring to that particular ballot question.
Well, and and I appreciate you giving Senator Summer some kudos because I echo that. But I think none of us up here, as we have tried to tackle this subject, have tried to pull the wool over anybody's eyes with exactly what we're trying to do and discussing.
Well, I do appreciate the opportunity to clarify my comments that they were directed to just that ballot question.
One last thing. You mentioned an article that says, as these things have been passed, that funding set aside for any issues is woefully inadequate.
Now, the Wall Street Journal, yeah. That was February of 2024. I can try to get you that article. Like I said, it's behind a paywall.
Yeah, I understand. I think everything's gone to that, even the enterprise. And I still love the enterprise.
In other words, there's in almost all these bills, money is allocated to help with addiction, But their conclusion was it hasn't been very helpful.
And in fear of this sounding snarky, and I don't mean it to be, you contend that there's addiction or there's gambling problems now,
There's
even
gam-
without,
yes.
even without legalizing?
There's
Is that
gambling
correct?
problems now? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking
Yes.
if you believe that.
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that the state funds any help for that now?
You know, if I'm honest, I haven't considered that question, whether the current funds are adequate to address that.
I would probably contend that they're not either. But those funds have to come from somewhere, and I understand the crux of it, but I'm just making a point.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Here, can I give this article that I?
He was so excited, he literally walked out of his shoes, folks.
I guess it got stuck in something. I don't know, but anyway, I just want to give that article I made reference to.
That's fine. Actually, if you'll just give it to Brian, he can distribute. Thank you. I think that's the fastest you've moved in a hot minute there, Mike. Your shoes didn't know what to do with it. Oh, my goodness. All right, next on the list, Miss Pam Hendricks.
Hello. I'm Pam Hendricks. I'm just a concerned citizen. I saw this public hearing advertised, thanks to Lee Becker in our county, and I presume there might not be anybody here, and I'm very happy to see the turnout. The one thing, I feel like we've been discussing this issue for years in Georgia, about expanding gambling in Georgia. That's the way I see it. And I thought it was pretty clear that I didn't think a majority, I've honestly never talked to anybody that was for it. So I'm having a hard time. I'm here kind of as, I guess, a mother and a concerned parent. I just want to plead to you that our children have so much stress on them today. I mean, it's a tough time to be growing up. I'm glad I'm not growing up in it. I mean, and the big thing that I sort of blame on it is this thing, the iPhone. And it's put a lot of pressure on kids. And so one of the big things that I'm the most concerned about is the online gambling and gaming, that this might expand. You know, I'm kind of okay with you going to places because you can make a decision to go or not. But it's really hard as a parent to control this iPhone and what your kids do on it. And, you know, we can make all kinds of rules, ages and that kind of thing. But, you know, the one thing, the kids are ahead of us. They figure out how to go around it. I once had an exchange student from New Zealand come, and he told me that his mom would put a control on his phone, and it was a challenge. And he would just figure out how to, and you know, he was actually a student at Georgia Tech when I hosted him, so he turned it into a good career. But I therefore just sort of took the route that I just didn't put any controls on my son's iPhone. I just talked to them about the dangers because I knew, and one of my sons now is in the computer industry, I knew they could go around any control. I mean, the second I got it. And so my biggest concern about expansion of gambling is allowing it on these things, allowing it on computers. And I think we right now are a society of severe loneliness. And part of what it will do is just allow people to gamble in private, all alone. And I just hope you will keep that in mind. And I'm a mother of 2 sons, and I want to say I see our young men struggling. And I just don't want to put one more burden on them. You know, I just keep saying we need our young men, and we need them to thrive. And I just ask you as our state government to kind of be the parent And is this really what we want to, to expand in our state? Please no, thank you.
You like any questions? I'm sorry. Just wanted to offer that up. Well, I would say just to echo your concerns there. Yeah, I think I have two teenagers. One's in her 20s now, so I can't call her a teenager anymore. But they do find it a challenge, and I'd love that. There's probably a host of people in this room that could sit down with you and show you exactly how easy it is for them to gamble right now. And that has been my growing concern over the industry as a whole, is how easy it is right now. And if anyone had a conversation with me directly about the online stuff, you would know that's where my heart is. The fact that there are 0 regulations right now, and there are countless Georgians right now on these phones circumventing geofencing, circumventing all sorts of things. I would also contend that I have come to believe that, the people that operate in this industry in an honest and respectful way are doing their level best to watch for irregularities in gambling, to help the people that are going down the wrong path, that putting barriers in place to make that harder. And I think that that's part of the conversation that I certainly have is with 0 regulation, these kids don't have, they will circumvent anything. So I've always maintained that in my efforts, it is not to expand or encourage, but to regulate and put guardrails on things that are already happening in this state prevalently. So I just wanted to say that before we got too far away from that. Representative Neal.
Yeah, I just had a question for the room, and if anybody can advise, if anybody's familiar with the virtual currency that children use now to buy games, Robux. I'm hearing that parents they're skimming through their parents' credit cards, purchasing those items, and that's not even a gambling function. That's just blazing cash into these video games. So, that's something that, when people draw on comparisons and ignoring those addictions that are related to children, and then, trying to demonize another. When we have the conversation, I would just like for it to be fair and balanced, and be aware of the things that we ignore in our society while trying to demonize another.
Thank you, Representative Neal. Williams.
Chairman, to follow up on that, online gaming is old. Everybody that wants to use it is using it now in Georgia. The state can continue to see billions go untaxed when homeowners are being taxed out of their houses. The back channels will never be controlled. The legal online does have some controls that can be in place. This is information from operable sites now. Offshore is here. We leave billions on the table. Do we feel good about allowing it to be illegal? Or would we like to have some say in it by legalizing it and putting some controls and getting some revenue from it? Because it is not going anywhere. If I knew how to use this phone, I just know yes, hello, and goodbye, and a text once in a while. I could place $1 million bet right now within the next 5 minutes at many, many sites that are on here, that my son can pick up and find immediately, and I can't find anything for folk who want some money on mine. But it is here. It's going to be done. Whether we legalize it and tax it or not, it's not going to slow down.
And Representative Williams, I ask you for the record. You've always just merely asked to let the citizens decide on that too, correct?
I've always been for the citizen's choice. Don't gamble, won't gamble, never will. But there's some folk who don't drink. But I just left Kentucky, and you don't like bourbon, you can't even get a citizenship card.
Never get tired of it.
I'll tell you, Al, I like telling little stories and memories that I've had in the legislature. And one of the greatest honors is being, having the opportunity to have your chaplain of the day come down. And I've seen some people really get ruffled feathers when their chaplain, offends somebody in the room. And I had the honor of bringing Sean C. from Athens Church down to the Capitol to be the chaplain of the day. And I couldn't help but feel this anxiety build over whether or not whatever he may say offends somebody. And where you sit, once you introduce this person, you sit back behind, you can't see at least half the room. And I'm sitting there just nervous as can be. And Al sits on the front row where you cannot see him. And I finally heard, "Amen," from Al. And just the relief that came over me in that moment. The relief that came over from that. So I appreciate you, Al. Members from the committee, is there anyone else in the audience? I don't want to put any other industry members on the spot that weren't signed up to speak. I did intend kind of to keep this as more focused on casinos at first, but really just open up the committee and have our first meeting. We will have additional time for some people in that industry that weren't able to make it on short notice. We will get into obviously sports betting, pari-mutuel stuff in the future. Anybody else from the industry or anybody else from the audience that would like to speak that is not currently signed up? Don't make me call on you. All right. I'll say this, open up for a little bit of discussion on the committee and food for thought. If you have some today, that'd be great. Chairman Powell already kind of shared some on healthcare. I think one of the things that I have found through this process, right, is when you start opening up the purse, right, to where's this money going to go, everybody's got a thought. And it can get carved up so quickly that there'd be woefully funded programs all over the place if you try to utilize it too wildly. I do subscribe to the thought process of keeping it to things that help all Georgians personally. But if there are any other thoughts from the committee today, I'd love to hear it other than healthcare that Chairman Powell's already shared. If anybody else would like to do that, or at least be mulling that over for future meetings.
Well, to the chairman, good friend of mine, I understand the reference to healthcare, but if we would accept the federal dollars, so to expand it here, we wouldn't have to waste money from a potential gambling bill to use towards something that we have federal dollars for. So we have like a lot more money to use in the state of Georgia. So we can, keep our vision open and be open to considering that in the future. We could save a lot of money should this bill do pass.
And I appreciate the comments. I would say that as it relates to spending money from these bills, maybe we can discuss how those dollars get spent as opposed to how we could get other dollars maybe, but I'll hear any ideas.
I'm not going to turn this into a partisan debate with my good friend down there, but I would just say that when well, look, I mean, we've worked together before, but I mean, I think it goes without saying when you're talking about, you all said if we didn't use the federal money, then we'd have to waste state dollars to do that same thing. So there's a little semantic words in that. And there's also the situation that the federal government, I'm told, is getting rid of some programs that they funded in the past and leaving states holding the sack on some of that. So I just want us to be real clear about the gentleman earlier, Mr. Clark. I'm going to bring you back up again. I certainly didn't mean to get sideways with you on your thing, and I think we lined up on that because we have been good stewards in Georgia. And I would just say this about the funds that come for this. Representative Evans mentioned, and without regard to how the question was written, and it was written the right way. The Georgia voters passed it. It has funded lottery and pre-K early on. Quite honestly, it was used for some capital projects that we probably could have done without, and we would have a deeper pool now. But I personally would say education in Georgia for both traditional and non-traditional students and the ability to pay for that is going to become more and more important as we move forward in the world we're living, preparing people for the future of work. So my commitment, and until somebody changes my mind, and that's a hard place, is that monies from these type of activities stay focused on pre-K, what the current constitutional allotment for them says. And I respect my friend from Hartwell and healthcare, but that we have a focus for these, and that's what I would say we would do. So, Mr. Chairman, you asked about where we see the funds going, and I think there's a good place. I think we're seeing good return on that for pre-K and postgraduate education or post-secondary education, excuse me, not postgraduate education, and would like us to concentrate on those funds staying in that area.
Mr. Chair, if I could respond.
In fear of getting into a debate, I was going to let Chairman Stevens say something real quick, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you might recall, whenever Chairman Powell over here was talking about the Blue Ribbon Commission, and I'm thinking that you were also on that committee, Al, way back when, and the standing room only that we had out at the racetrack, and it was in several places that we went. But just since we're talking about facts, and that's what the speaker wanted to hear was the facts. Way back whenever this gentleman over here voted for the bill back in '94, electronics weren't even invented yet. As you might recall, is if you can get a fax machine that on a twisted pair of line on a telephone, that was your communication electronically. And so none of the stuff is up to date with the things that we're talking about today. Those 4 million people that Ed talked about a few minutes ago, I think they want to vote. And we've had some folks with a differing opinion. Virginia Galloway came up and told our committee on this Blue Ribbon Committee that we need to eliminate all gambling. So I put in a bill that would do exactly that and tried to get signatures. Not one representative signed that bill. I shouldn't be shocked, but those folks want to vote yes or no. Get back to this issue again. Whenever it was initiated, it was all paper. Things have changed a little bit. And here's two of the big facts that we all need to consider going forward. We're going to be the 5th most populated state in the country in a couple of decades. Let me say that again, the 5th most populated state in the country. That puts us right behind the state of New York. 4 million of those people, since this gentleman voted for the bill way back in '94, have had an opportunity to raise themselves up and have a better life because of hope with a foundation and pre-K. That's important, and I agree with the gentleman to my left. The legacy has been like no other. But from the beginning, people had the opportunity to vote. It barely passed, but they had the opportunity to vote. And I think those 4 million people, along with the other 6 that are left that weren't here or had the opportunity to gain from some of those, need the opportunity with a clear ballot question to vote yes or vote no and put this thing to bed.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just add my amen to the hallelujah chorus on keeping the funds in the educational pots and, the Hope Legacy. I am a part of that. I mean, I went to the University of Georgia on the Hope Scholarship, grew up very poor in Northwest Georgia, first in my family to go to college, absolutely would not have been able to go to the University of Georgia without Hope and be able to sit in this seat and advocate to protect those dollars for the future. So you will find no one more, more ready to put more money in that pot than me. I do want to, though, caution us that when we are, while we're working through this and trying to get a comprehensive solution so that we can perhaps stop talking about this year after year after year, which is where I think the committee wants to be, let's be very smart about how we release funds that we have before piling on top of those funds. And a lot of folks in this room have heard me talk about this for years. We are piling up massive amounts of reserve funds, lottery reserve funds. So when we made the drastic change to the way Hope and pre-K dollars are spent and reserved back in 2011, we increased the state's required reserve fund for the lottery for education funds to be 50%, essentially of a, it's now a 3-year average, thanks to Chairman Martin, essentially a 3-year average of either prior year expenditures or prior year receipts, somewhere around there. You put all the numbers into the calculator machine, and that means that the reserves need to be somewhere around, I think it's about $700 or $800 million, probably a little bit less than that. Right now, we are holding $2 billion with a B in reserves. And so a few years ago, thanks to bipartisan help from a lot of folks on this panel, we were able to put language into the code that now says when reserves are a certain healthy amount above what they're required to be, that we have to spend 10% of that extra every year. So this was the first year, I call it sort of the release language, to let the funds go to what they were meant to go to. I always say Georgians didn't approve the lottery to have a lottery. They approved the lottery to fund education. We all saw today that that was in the question. I think a lot of folks in Georgia would be very upset to know that all that money is literally sitting in a pot doing nothing, earning some very little amount of interest. But anyway, this was the first year for that triggered release. And it was a little less than $200 million that got sent off. It's about $160, $170 million, somewhere around there, which is essentially the interest earned on all of the funds in the last year. So we are not spending it down, is my point. That's a long way of saying right now we have a lot of money that was meant to go to these educational purposes, Hope and pre-K, that is not. So I am all for adding more money to education, but I want to make sure that we're not just piling it on top of a stack of money that we're not spending. And so when we go through, I want us to be very careful about the language and making sure that when the reserve is healthy, right now it's flat, fat, and bloated, healthy, then we make sure that we spend those dollars before we just pile up more, because otherwise we're not helping. All we're doing is approving a way for folks to place bets. And that's not what I think anybody on this panel wants. And so I just caution us to make sure that we ensure not just that the money gets put in the pot, but that it gets spent from the pot.
I'll just add 2 things to that. One, I think you were very clear, but just to put an emphasis, the reserves we're speaking of are the lottery reserves, not the state reserves. You know, we've worked very closely together on trying to get that language right to make sure these dollars are getting deployed and actually helping the education of the people we're exactly trying. Representative Neal, I wanted to go back to you. Apologize, I did not get that.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify earlier. I know the chair made this reference to, of course, we don't want to be getting to a partisan conversation, and that wasn't my intent. When we were, making this consideration moving forward, I think we need to make sure that we are considering what funds we do have available, as federal, you name it, so that we know that we can bypass trying to fund certain things that are already funded and we can allocate extra funds to those funds to something else, such as the pre-K and the other educational components that we spoke about. So I want to make sure I wasn't trying to be partisan, but I did want to make sure that we, as we move forward, think through the things we already have funding for or get funding for, and then we can divert our intentions elsewhere when we're drafting the bill.
Thank you. Representative Williams, we'll go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for avoiding a partisan divide on this very unified committee here. But back to some things that Ed said when he was testifying, and I've heard it come up. It is vitally important. The problem gambling piece that we must put that in writing. And the problem has been nationwide, and I've had a chance to look at every state that has legalized gambling. Originally, the older places have very low percentages for handling this problem. Mississippi is around 4 or 5%, and it's not sufficient. The money is going to be there. It is a problem that has to be addressed on the front side because you only get one bite at the apple because nobody has gone back and raised where they put it. I think it should be put at a reasonable point to deal with this. And it is not anymore, it's not any bigger in gambling than it is in alcoholism. It is a problem that needs to be addressed, but it needs to be funded correctly to be addressed. And I think the success of this committee will be where we set the numbers on any issue and how we divide the money, because that is not agreed to yet, but I think the discussions we're having, we'll reach an agreement, I certainly hope. But certainly we have to deal with the issue of problem gambling and how we fund it on the front end.
And I'll just add to that, Representative Williams, yeah, you chair Nickel G's, correct? So Nickel G's, for those in the audience, I can never remember the full acronym. I just refer to it as that. They have an outline for a piece of legislation to be appropriate to handle all those things. And I do believe that any piece of legislation, as mine was, runs through that gauntlet of questions. Does it address these issues? And if it does, certainly, I think that any piece of legislation that comes forward should be kind of, like I already said, run through that checklist and make sure that we handle all those things the best way we can. My chairman, Matt Hatchett.
Thank you, Chairman. We are. You know, I got a friend that says, when it's not about the money, it's about the money. So I am daily learning of challenges we have with the dependency on federal funds coming to our state. And I will be excited, maybe that's not the proper term, but I'll be pleased with any ability we have to control state funds, and we can determine where the state funds go. Because had we been more dependent on federal funds, I probably wouldn't be here today, because I'd be in my office trying to figure out what to do come next session. But I think we're in a good place right now, but we do have concerns with the federal funds that we may or may not be receiving. And I'm pleased with where we are right now, but we learn of different things every day. So I'll be glad to hopefully take a position on this down the road, and we can generate state funds and determine how the state funds are going to be spent.
Thank you. And I'll take that opportunity. For those of you that don't really understand, and as I did not, the appropriations process, Chairman Hatchett spends countless hours on our budget. The analysts behind that spend even more. And that team of people led by Christine Murdoch are valuable assets to the state who do not get nearly enough accolades for the countless hours they put in supporting us as citizens. just like our media services folks over here in the corner coming out here today, obliging us in Oconee County. Brian, appreciate your service as well. Nick in the back, appreciate our ledge council that helps us try to be lawyers, I guess. Some of us aren't. But any other thoughts for the committee? Chairman Powell.
I'd like to say just a couple of things to address the committee. And I think for the first meeting, y'all just saw the crux of the problems that we're going to have. You know, we had cohesiveness 6 years ago in that committee, and we actually got into the depth of things. Y'all heard some of the testimony today. We've heard from both sides. You know, you had the moralistic side. You know, and thank the good gentleman for all of you. He said something I heard said a few years ago, well, you know, these casinos got so much money, they're going to be advertising. Well, they tend to forget that on the other side, on the moralistic side, that they have a group that they have one particular day out of the week that they have a captive audience to talk about these things. And they don't have to pay anything for advertising for that. Takes a constitutional amendment. There's where the real problem comes and the difficulty in coming to a decision. Because you've got to get 120 votes, and that means both political parties have got to get together if they want to do this. The money that was talked about, you know, we've got to talk about money. I've got my own position that I'd like to see it go to healthcare. Some people want to see it go to education. My good friend there, she made the issue about how much money is sitting in surplus over in the lottery. Well, you know, there's only so much money you can put into education, but hard to educate folks who don't have proper health care. You know, and those are the issues that we're going to be dealing with more with the most recent federal budget, with the cuts that's going to be coming down. That my other good friend over there, he'll probably lose another 75 pounds in the next budget process from the stress that he'll go through. But I would tell this committee, and that would be to go into this with an open mind. But if the money is going to be the last, because you got a lot more hurdles you're going to have to jump over before you get to that. You're going to have to decide about economic development. You're going to have to decide about the enabling legislation. You're going to have to decide a lot of these things. There's a ton of things that you're going to have to decide. I would caution committee members, don't be so predisposed. You know, it's like my good friend Mike was talking about the moralistic side of this. Well, you know, I'm not quite sure, you know, it's, you know, not all the good Baptists in Georgia, while they might say that they're opposed to this, well, when it goes to the vote, they might very well vote for it. As I've said for years, when you go to Cherokee up there, you can't find a parking space because the church buses from Georgia, quite frankly. So they use it as a recreational place to go to. So, you know, you're going to see division on both sides of this issue. So I would say to the committee members, keep open mind to it. Ask questions, ask pertinent questions. When you find out how much money you're talking about, then you can start talking about divvying up. 6 years ago, destination, if Georgia had 6 destination resort casinos, estimated would bring in $4 billion. And probably twice to triple that amount in sales and use tax. So, you know, you're talking about a lot of movable pieces in here. So I would challenge committee members, ask the questions and don't make a lot of commitments until you get all the answers. Look at all of it.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'll say this, just, I guess, a few announcements. We will get together as a committee. I'm looking at probably the end of August for another meeting, to be determined date and location. Can't fit you all at my house, otherwise I might have done that. But also just for a point, I want to appreciate Representative Williams and Evans, although not quote unquote official members, their efforts and knowledge in this are valued, and appreciate your presence here today. Appreciate John Daniel and the Board of Commissioners allowing us to use their space today. And with that, Stay tuned for further notices on meetings, but we will stand adjourned.